Tate, how you doing, man?
We're trying to stay warm up here. It's coming pretty good freeze again last night.
Yeah, it warmed up for us yesterday here in Texas. We're about mid 70s, but it's this morning it's 42 and windy, so it's coming again.
Yep. Yeah, we hit 15 again today, so it's probably coming.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad. Living in Texas is one of those things where in the winter you're really glad you live here, but in the summer you freaking hate it. So
Yeah, I get it.
can't have it all.
It seems like everybody has a pro and con.
Yeah, California has really nice weather, damn near South California year round, but it's California.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, all right, dude, we've been trying to do this for a while, and I'm glad we finally managed to get it done. But you've been kind of busy lately, huh?
I've been really busy, trying to stay busy. I don't know how to do anything else, really.
You and I stay pretty close, in communication, especially with the machine shop stuff. A lot of people don't know, but you are the reason I have D&G mooring machines. You're the one that said, man, just get a DMG mooring. And I thought you were crazy when you said that, but now I am very grateful that you gave me that piece of advice. But at the time it was extremely scary.
Right. Yeah, I remember when you were starting up and you were getting out of the building and you were serious about it. It's like, man, don't mess around with the other stuff. Just go right up to the top stuff. So
yeah, again, I'm glad you told me that. And hindsight, I'm very happy with the machines that I have now. But man, what's been going on over at Impact? Because I know last year was kind of crazy for you, huh?
it was crazy. Not to beat around the bush, with the Defiance ownership the change, we just got a major flow of calls coming, and we were at a point where we were maxed out with the equipment that we had in the shop that we had. So it's like, man, you got to spend some money, and then if you make more actions, you got to make more bolts. You make more actions, you got to have another wire. So it's a pretty big jump. It's not just a simple jump. It's a multi. There's a bunch of facets to that. So it was new shop time. One machine turned into three machines, and I don't have to tell you, but we upgraded the machinery, and we were so when we started making actions, we had a shop that was a job shop, and we had just basic mills, basic lathes. We had lathes with Y-axis and milling, but we didn't say, okay, let's go make this part and go buy a machine dedicated to this part. So in a lot of ways, I guess you could say we were simple, which simple is not always bad, but we weren't as efficient as we could be. So I was able to step back, and actually, it's kind of funny you're talking about Maury, because I got a Mazak behind me. But I went to Ruben Quijada and I was like, hey, I need to make the heck out of these things. What do we do? And we were able to buy the equipment I wanted to make that exact part and make them as efficiently and as well as we could. And it's hard enough when you have one machine coming into a new shop, getting it lined out, but doing three at the same time is another feat in itself, especially by yourself. So I'm in a new location now. I'm closer to home. I moved back to my hometown, and I think in the long run we'll all be here. The whole shop will be here, but right now that's not the plans. But yeah, it's been busy with the shop, getting the machines going. Had problems with my dad's health last year, slowed me down quite a bit. But here we are, and you just keep digging and get through it.
Man, I know you grind and you push, and I respect you a lot for that. And we've had those conversations before, but from what I understand, you were planning simply to move your shop, correct? And then when the whole Defiance thing happened, you text me one day, said, well, looks like the move just turned into an expansion.
That's right.
Because that all happened like within days, right? It wasn't or how did that go down exactly?
I probably planning on moving for a couple of years. I'm partners with my father-in-law in the manufacturing shop, and he's about to retire. And I wanted to get my kids where I wanted to be. I have a 2, about to be 6, and 9-year-old, and I wanted to get them. I didn't want to stay in Tisch if I wasn't going to be there for 20 years. I didn't want to move them schools or anything like that. And the opportunity came to buy land by my parents. So it was just time to move. So I moved before the shop moved, and was literally just waiting on idle to get a build. Just going to do it slow mo, build a shop and just make the transition slow. And then Really, George Gardner at GA Precision came on, and the percentage was so great. It was like, I can't make it with what we have, but it's either do it now or maybe never get the chance again. So, you do it now. And so it went just immediately. Yeah, you're right. From a move to an expansion in a matter of 5 days, probably. So we're rocking. So basically the way it's working right now is I bought dedicated equipment for the bolt manufacturing at the new shop. And we're turning the machines we had in Tish were better suited to run actions than bolts. So we're cranking over some bolt machines, some mills to cranking out actions full time. And the machine behind me just absolutely just spits out bolts. So, right now I think in the future, I'll probably have a building. This is only 6,000 square feet here, and we're going to outgrow it fast. So I think in the future, I'll have a twin building right next door, and we'll try to keep the two separate still. Actions next door, probably assembly here, cause I've already got the assembly set up. And bolts here. So who knows how, I hate to, you always set goals, but if you hit about 25% of them, you got to adapt. So who knows how it'll go, but I think we'll be here, in the next 8 or 10 years for sure.
Yeah, that's exciting, man. It's I'm still in the excitement phase of my growth. It just I was when you and I were talking, I mean, you were one of the first people I called when I decided I'm going to start a machine shop, and you were extremely helpful, which to this day, and this, I'm extremely grateful for all the help you gave me. But I told you, I said I'm going to buy a machine, and that's it, just one machine. And you said, you laughed, you said, that's not going to be your only machine. I said, no, that's it. I'm just going to buy one machine, and I'm not going to hire no employees. And you just kept laughing. You said, okay, well, that's fine, but whatever. And man, if I wasn't wrong, I mean, I'm 2 years in. I guess this is our third year. We got a third machine already, and yesterday I was walking around the shop going, because I expanded within 6 months. I expanded to what I thought was going to be way too big for anything I ever planned on doing. Well, yesterday I was stepping it out there saying, okay, if I needed to build more shop, where would I put it?
Yeah, I get it, man. That help went both ways, just so everybody knows, but I was building a house the same time you were starting a shop. So I would call you and say, hey man, sorry to bother. And you're like, no, I was about to call you too. So, you were very helpful in my house. I don't feel like I helped you that much, but sometimes, I got a buddy that says the next step's always harder until you take it. You just need a buddy to let you know everything's going to be all right when you take that step and you have help. I'd be like, man, I really appreciate that. And be like, man, I didn't do anything, but you did, because you didn't scare me. So.
Yeah, well, you did a lot, and I understand, you being from that world, you're like, oh dude, it's nothing, just go, but me looking from the outside in going, I don't know, I don't know how this is going to go, but obviously, very grateful to this day. And I'm glad you're rocking and rolling, man, because it's exciting to see you, especially the fact that I know you well, and I know how much you grind, that it's paying off.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. And that's that same way about you. There's a book, I don't remember what it's called, but something about a go-getter. You've probably read it, because I think you read books, but it's a really good book. But, when you were coming in the machining world, you got different kinds of people, and you have people that know how to get stuff done. You have people that are going to get stuff done, whether they know what to do or not. And I know you're a go-getter too. So I knew that was going to work out no matter how you shook it. Yeah,
it's anyway, exciting times. So let's back it up, and how do you end up here? What was your past life? I think everybody has a pretty good idea how I ended up here, but what about you?
So I went to school to be a pharmacist. I thought, I grew up, my parents were on a salary, made, decent money. We weren't too well off, but I was raised to go to college and get a job. And I always knew I liked toys and wasn't really 100% focused on money, but pharmacists get to work inside and, seem like they make good money. So I just was going to go to pharmacy school. So I wound up, I played a lot of golf in my junior years and actually ended up getting an academic scholarship. So I actually quit golf, didn't want to play, got burnt out. Go to school, focus on school for about 2.5 years. I actually walk on the golf team, qualified the next week. Coach still knew me. Qualified the next week, started playing college golf again, kind of got into it. and ended up with I can't remember if I had a chemistry degree first or a biology degree, but wound up with one of those degrees, and anyway had another year of eligibility, and I ended up getting biology, chemistry, and a minor in math. And before you knew it, I didn't want to go to school, so I went to the oil field and really didn't know what I wanted to do, but I'm not lazy, so I was going to go do something. So went to the oil field, had my fill of that for about 15 years, and ended up getting a job at a machine shop. And man, one thing led to another. I learned the machines instantly. Probably I don't remember the timeline, but call it a month or two. They felt comfortable with me, programming stuff and going from there. And I guess I worked there for about probably 3 or 4 years, and told what is now my father-in-law, like, man, I don't want to make other people's parts forever. Like, this is crazy, because being the kind of guy that I am, you get a job in, you make 50 of them, then you go to the next job. And it's like, there's never that sense of satisfaction where you get anything done, because you always have something lined up for the next one. And like, I can't relax like that. I can hardly relax with what I do right now, when I miss commitments. But, I started shooting precision rifle, started, man, as simple as anybody can. I found Rick Reeves on, long range hunting, and didn't Alex, Oklahoma. They were having, it's actually Alec, but spelled Alex, found out he worked with my dad, which makes it a really small world. And, anyway, reached out to him. I go shoot, build a gun. I actually built a 284, on a Remington 700 right off the bat. And,
yeah, buddy.
yeah, so no muzzle brake, no anything, to shoot this. And anyway, I take a year to get that gun together, and, I go out and shoot. Now everybody's shooting a 6.5 6.5 47, and no brake still, by the way, in 2000, and let's call it end of 2012. So then I built a 6.5 47 or 284, and then start shooting PRS, and absolutely get drummed my first match out. To give you the real story, I don't know that I've ever given the full story, because it's kind of been time sensitive, but I think I got four. So the match I showed up at, the first match I went to, was an OPPS match, and it was a week before the Bushnell Brawl. And the Bushnell Brawl was known for having the goofiest positional stuff you can. And Jacob at least has been good to me, so no harm there. But their range, they can only do so much with it, long range shooting. So in my opinion, they make you do some pretty goofy stuff. And some of the skills required to do well there are necessary skills, but the way that you do them there don't really seem realistic. But mag changes in between movement, left, weak side, all that kind of stuff. So the first match I went to, they're practicing for the Bushnell Brawl. And here I am. I just, I've never even practiced regular stuff, and show up this match. And I think I got like third or fourth from last, but I was so far behind the pack that it was ridiculous. But they were shooting 6.5 Creedmoor, 6.5 47s, and I had a 6.5 284 with no brake and probably about a 12-pound rifle. And man, on the way home, I was riding home with Rick Reeves, and I was like, man, I'm getting away from the recoil. So I built a 6mm XT, put a brake on it. I put it in a, when you first get into the gun game, especially when you're my age, you don't just drop a lot of coin. You think, I don't have the money for that, or, I'm not going to spend the money on that. And then the more you get into it, it's like, whatever it takes. Like, let's get better. Let's just, whatever. So on the way home, I get online and I order a barrel. Never chained a barrel in my life. Never even thought I wanted to, but the next match was like 30 days later. And I'd already been up to, Wade at Surgeon Rifles to ask if they had any work. And he had, I don't, for whatever reason, I hadn't gotten any work, but we showed up for the next match, and this was in 13. And in about a span of two weeks, I got all the parts for my 6XC, got it together, and I showed up at my second match ever and won the match. And Wade was there, and he had just come off the Precision Rifle Series Golden Bullet, champion in 2012, and I beat him. And I don't know that he'd tell this same story, but immediately after beating him, I got a call, hey, you still got capacity for work, And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we started roughing, not doing any important work, but roughing out the Surgeon XLs and the ones with a flat bottom. And I think we did all the preheat treat work, just nothing important. But we did that work. And, Surgeon sold like a lot of companies do. I hate seeing these companies that are small, family owned, have a lot of heart in it, sell to some corporate guy that thinks they can turn it into a business. And, you lose that small town, family feel to it. But anyway, Wade saw the writing on the wall. Go ahead. Were you about to say something? Wade, I think, saw the writing on the wall, and things were going south there. So he reached out and basically, and I may be a little bit off in this, but he was like, "Hey, do you think you can make me like 50? I don't remember if it was 50 or 100 actions a year. I don't remember what it was." And I wasn't a very good business guy there, but my father-in-law was there, and he said, "Man, we won't make you any actions, but let's start making actions ourselves." And Wade says, "Man, I can't do it. I'm still at surgeon, but I just want to know it's a possibility." And anyway, like, yeah, it's a possibility. So months go on, and that situation, I don't want to get into details there, but there was some miscommunication. And anyway, turns out one day Wade comes, he's like, "Man, I'm ready. Let's do it." And I think that was in about 14. And 1 year later, we rushed and hodgepodge an action together for the first match of 15, and it just took off from there. I think we're still had jobs set up on this side of the mill table, and, had a couple fixtures on this machine back here and a couple fixtures on this machine back here. I think by 15, we made about 35 actions maybe that first year, and then, 16, 130, and then 17, maybe 300. And then it was like, I go to my father-in-law, and him being kind of the job shop guy, it was kind of hard for him to transition, just I think from a security standpoint, because he had all these customers that were, we didn't get the same jobs, but they always reached out to him. And I walked in one day and I was like, "Man, we're either going full bore this or I'm out. I'm going to do it somehow or another." So luckily he gave into my graces and like, "Man, okay, let's do it." And anyway, here we are, probably 6 years later from going full bore actions and bolts.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing what what happens when you're when you have the passion and the drive, right? Like you had passion. You just, like you said, you weren't extremely happy with the job shop situation. You knew you wanted a machine. You just didn't want a machine for others. And then whenever you went to your first match, you realize, I can just make an action. And,
yep.
And now it's turned into thousands,
Right.
Crazy, man.
It is cool. And I'm not going to tell you, you understand, I still love it. I love it every day. But, sometimes it does get to a grind late at night when you're out here, but I still love it at the end of the day. Still love what I do. I don't ever wake up and wish I was doing something else.
Yeah. Well, that's important. And that's, that's how I got here, because I started waking up and wishing I was doing something else. And, I said, well, if that's what I want to do, let me just do it. And, here I am, which I'm really happy about.
Right. And I think, I'm not very good at breaking stuff down into bullet points, but one of the things I saw is like, you're kind of relying on others unless you bring it all in house, like doing parts for other people. You're kind of, guys say, "Hey, I need this ran. Can you schedule for money?" You don't have a print. Well, when it's your own product, you kind of set your own pace, and you are the guy. Like, you scheduling concrete or framing or whatever, and the guy doesn't show up and you drive, I remember seeing pictures of you starting pouring concrete at like 3:00 in the morning or something, to get it, done. And you don't have to worry about anybody else. That's what I like about this. So
yeah, those were tough times. Like you said, I had hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, and I'm literally relying on others for this to work, and not just one person, many people. Like it all had to go flawless, right? And then when it didn't, it all fell back on me. Yeah, and there was many times where I was really like, I just had to push through and get it done. Like, I was thinking about it the other day, and there was more than a handful of times that, knowing what I know now, like that I almost died and by heat exhaustion. Like I'd start, you just 100+ degrees and you're out there shoveling concrete and just pushing concrete around, and concrete waits for no one. And you just can't stop, and you just go without water, without food, without anything. And then all of a sudden, man, I start getting lightheaded, and, I just go and sit down for 5 minutes until I feel better, and I go right back. And, any of those times could have been it, and,
right.
But at the time you don't think about it. And it's not just me, it's everybody that was out there. There was guys that would start cramping up, and then that's it. They just be on the ground, couldn't get up, and we just go, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine. You guys keep going," but because concrete waits for no one. And anyway, I'm just, concrete deserves a lot of respect, and so do those that do it, because I've done it, and trust me, I don't want to do it again. It's some tough work, but
right.
Now what I do now, it's different. It's like you said, it's very rewarding. Go in the shop and things are different. It's not it's not the same. I still have that mentality of you got to get it done, and I hate being late on projects, and I hate having a lead time. I hate for people to wait on my products. I hate that, but it's part of it. That's why I keep adding machines, because I don't want people waiting on my products. But we're getting better. We're getting more efficient, and I hate when people get something and it doesn't work as expected. And and I tell them, just send it back. I'll fix it. I'll do whatever I need to do. And the newest machine that we got is a CMM, because I'm like, I want this thing to be as expected before, every part. And I think a CMM is kind of overkill, but I think in the long run, that's the only way that I can ensure that everything is perfect,
Man, I get it. And, I'm not a very good businessman in a lot of ways. I still put together, I have my main guy, Shane. He puts the firing pin assemblies together, which, believe it or not, is not a goober job. You have to have your head on right. You have to be paying attention, but I still take every assembled bolt and every assembled action, put them together, do some function testing. And I have a spreadsheet of every action I've ever put together since serial number 125. And I know what I'm feeling for. I know, how it should work. I over the years, I've had somebody say, hey, my protrusion's not right. Well, I can say, well, it was this when it left the shop. If you done anything to it, I've just gotten better over time, and it is a pain in the rear, but it takes me about 6 minutes in action to go over those things. And it just a sense of peace that I get when I send that out the door. I know somebody's not going to get something stupid. And I've had a really hard time handing that off. And I don't want to dwell too much on this, but Shane, over the course of 3 or 4 years, has gotten to where I trust him on the firing pin assemblies and bolt assemblies 100%. He cares. I haven't gotten a bad one in, I don't know, 3 years, something like that. And I'm trusting him, but he doesn't shoot. He doesn't know how it should function. I know that sounds goofy, but I tell everybody, I think it'd take putting 500 of them together to really feel competent. I'm probably saying something I shouldn't hear, but I've been trying to hire the right guy, and I don't know if you know Quinn Rogers, but I think I'm going to be able to move Quinn Rogers on my team, and I hope so. Like I just can't tell you how much I hope that happens, because he's going to be an asset to the company, and I think I could trust him doing that. And it takes a special person for that to happen. So hopefully that happens and get me to where I can focus on other areas.
Yeah, and that's obviously that would be great. Having skilled a person that cares, to me, that's a skill.
Yep.
And once they have that skill, like anything else, it's just going to fall in place. And I know that's what you look for, which is also what I look for. But it's kind of the reason I got a CMM, because I'm like, I can't check every single part and not every, and the thing is, they go through like we make them and they're great. We measure them. We have very expensive bore gauges, and we check, the dies and everything checks out. But then they go to coating, they go to polishing, they go to whatever. And by the time they come back, we got to check them again.
Yep.
Right. And sometimes they're not the same part that left the shop,
Right.
And that was just taking up a lot of our time. And I thought, well, how can we do this more efficiently? Right. And I looked around and said, well, I guess a CMM it is, because, CMM, you just set them all up and
you made that sound really easy, but I'm sure there's some setup involved there. And I do have context for that, and I'm sure we will get there. But I haven't yet.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure that when my dies leave the shop, so you know how this works, right? You remember being a new shooter. You bought a set of dies. It's at 6.5 Creedmoor or 6.5 284 or whatever you bought. What size were they? Who knows? Right?
Yeah.
Like you just buy a set of dies. And what most people don't realize is the tolerance for like semi-spec, it's like 10 thousandths, the tolerance, depending on the cartridge, but 8 to 10 thousandths. Well, which one did you get? And which chamber do you have? So obviously you have to make them on the minimum so that you can cover them all. But if somebody has a chamber that's on the max side, they go, hey, your die is wrong. Well, no, your chamber's fat, and that's what I tell them. So what I do is we send out the dies. I make them how I would make them for myself. They're pretty tight, because clickers are something that I absolutely hate, because and most people don't even realize what a clicker is. And that's when the brass is so tight in the chamber that when you go to extract, the primary extraction does all the work, right? The case is stuck, and the primary extraction has to jank it out of there, and the bolt will click when it overcomes the resistance. And most people don't even know that, but it's a problem that I've seen. So I make my dies pretty snug so that doesn't happen. And so and I sent out an email and said, hey, here's my dies. My plan is that this is the last die you'll ever buy, and if you have a problem, let me know, send it back, and send back some brass. And I will modify the die, or I'm not that one, but I'll make another one that'll fit your chamber, So I did that for a guy, and he got his die, and like, oh, this is amazing. Thank you for, pretty much I made him a custom die, right? So then his buddy calls or emails me and goes, hey, I have a die, and I have the same chamber as my friend, Ernie. Just make me the same die. I said, no, just because you have the same reamer doesn't mean you have the same size chamber. Right. He goes, but it's the same reamer. I said, to play it safe, just send me some brass. It might be the same, but you know this very well. Just because it's the same reamer doesn't mean it's the same size hole. Because I have no idea who's chambering the barrels, what setup they're using, and I don't want to, make no assumptions, especially because I want to get it right the next time. I don't want it to be trial and error. Right.
Man, you said a lot right there, and something you have a lot of followers, and something I want to educate on. I feel like people don't need the educating, but some people don't, but a lot of people do.
If you've ever done competitive shooting, you need to check this out. A truly one-of-a-kind attachment that reduces barrel harmonics and increases precision. Each barrel has its own unique resonant frequencies. When a bullet travels down the barrel, it creates vibrations at these frequencies, similar to how plucking a guitar string produces specific tones. 1. Self-timing nut for correct timing. 2. 3-port muzzle brake for maximum recoil reduction. A combination of innovative port angles offers reduced muzzle blast fatigue and excellent recoil reduction. 3. Toolless barrel tuner allows for easy adjustments to find that sweet spot. Tooled in the USA for the pro and novice alike. Get yours today and see immediate results.
Yeah, I'm not gonna claim the idea, but Wade Studeville's kind of he'll claim it. He's lazy. He's a hard worker too. He's very smart. He's a go-getter, but he doesn't like doing things dumb ways forever. And he wanted to guarantee headspace on our actions and index and all that kind of stuff. Well, when you're doing an assembly, which is essentially what that is, you have a bolt and an action and a barrel. It's an assembly. Man, when we first started, selling actions, we had guys taking the action that they had bought, chambering the barrel to that action with those threads, and then they would tell me, hey, this action, you got a problem with your action because I chambered it to this action and sent it to the customer and it won't screw on. And guys don't understand it, but that, they build airplanes with assembly prints. Like they build the most serious things in the world with way tighter tolerances. To be honest, I don't want to scare the crowd, but with way tighter tolerances that are in a rifle action or head spacing. We're talking 2/10 tolerance, 4/10, all that kind of stuff. Based on assembly prints. So it's been a challenge getting a lot of gunsmiths that weren't machinists to where they actually wanted to measure. And for the longest time, guys would say, oh, just stay away from pre-fits. But 85% of them would say that because they were too lazy. They never had to learn how to measure a part, and were too lazy to buy the proper, mics or gauging or anything like that to make it to the print that, we had drawn for the assembly to ensure everything would work. So, man, it's the same thing you're talking about there. My biggest struggle is when guys, I just had a post yesterday, somebody bought a pre-fit and it didn't work. And I put stuff together and I measure my own gauging. I know it was right, and I'm pretty confident on that. And, you still fight guys that are, still doing stuff the old school way. So, I can appreciate the fact you even fixed it for him, because a lot of times I get a little short-sighted and be like, man, tell your gunsmith to learn how to measure, or, whatever. But anyway.
So the other thing we've had, making brakes for 3 years now, every now and then we'll get a brake where they'll actually strike the brake. And they go, hey, your brake was made wrong. And I'm like, the brake was not made wrong. I mean, hell, man, I got collet chucks and it transfers to another collet chuck. And I, not only does it do that, I check it, right? Like, and our brakes have, I think the maximum, run out of like 2,000s. Well, the hole is 25,000 over, right? So it's like, it's not going to strike. Well, so we'll get it back. Say, hey, your brake was made wrong. I'm like, no. So I called them up. I said, all right, what happened? Well, you guys made the brake wrong. I said, no. And before I call them, I run a program in the machine where it cuts a 5/8 24 thread in the machine. While it's still in the machine, I chuck it up and I put an indicator on there and I spin the chuck. And I'm like, yeah, it's fine. There's no run out here. Then I called the customer. I said, hey, so what happened? Well, your brake was made wrong. I said, well, I just checked the brake and the brake is fine. There was nothing wrong with the brake. I mean, now it's got a bullet strike on it, but other than that, it's fine. And I had one that got pretty agitated about that. And I said, hold up. I'm going to replace it. Like, I know this is not my fault. However, the only reason I'm telling you this is because if you install it on your barrel again, it's going to happen again. So I'm going to replace the brake. I'm just telling you it's not my fault, but I get it. Shit happens. But you need to take that barrel to a gunsmith and have them fix the threads. Otherwise, you're going to hit brakes. You're going to hit cans. Anything you ever put on that barrel is going to get hit. So the only reason I'm calling you is to let you know that. And I'm going to ship you a brand new brake. And that's it. Because I feel like if I just send them a new brake, I'm not doing them any favors. Or me, for that matter.
Right.
So that's how we approach that.
And it is. And I haven't really thought about your problems that you have, but there's a lot of guys that have a lathe in their garage that don't do anything except for thread muzzles. And I actually had a guy call me to have muzzles threaded yesterday. I actually saw when I first started, I don't know if you would call him reputable, but I assumed he was reputable. And he actually indicated off the OD of the barrel when he threaded. And, I actually saw a picture one time where he wrapped masking tape around his barrel to protect it from the chuck. And it's just like, oh my gosh, so those are the guys that say you can't trust the brake without him boring it out. The perfect example, the gunsmith says, oh, you can't buy a pre-fit brake. You have to have the brake so you can bore it out. That's exactly the same, scenario we're talking about.
So, yeah. So now that you mentioned that, when I was starting to do this, of course, I was talking to you, right? And, Jim Borden was the first person I ever called because I'm really close with him. Sure. Talked to him, and then I called you because you and I had been talking. So of course I asked you, and you guys were telling me very similar stuff. And I'm like, oh, good. I have two very reputable people telling me the same thing. And then I was talking to another guy who's also a machinist, and he sells stuff. And I told him, I said, yeah, I'm going to start making brakes. And he says, you are, huh? I said, yeah. And that right there kind of gave me a little bit of, what's going on here? And he said, you ever made any brakes? I go, well, yeah, on a manual mill, just for myself, but nothing, no production. And he said, he goes, well, production is not that simple. And I said, well, I mean, I don't know. I said, as far as I know, just make them to print, get some gauges and 5/8 24. If get a gauge, go gauge and no go gauge, as long as the threads are between the two, I mean, it should work. And he says, oh, so you think that's how it works, huh? I go, well, I don't know how else it works. He says, well, all I got to say is good luck. And to this day, that's how we do it. It works every time. But yeah. I don't know what this guy was getting at, other than I think he was one of those where, I don't know. Like I said, I just left it at that, and I never called the guy again for advice.
Yeah, man. Like I said, we didn't pioneer it because AI was selling pre-fits on theirs, but we jumped in, and I'm not anyway claiming we pioneered it, but we jumped in, and you see more and more guys making these parts that like you making brakes ahead of time. I don't know what you call them, the SelfTiming breaks, let's call them. And,
Right.
you know, the user installed at the end. There's no reason, if you have good equipment and good measuring tools, you can't do that. I mean, there's no reason not to be able to do that. So, I don't know what he was thinking, but he was living in the past. I had another, what I thought was reputable gunsmith about 3 years ago, call me and say, "Hey man, precision rifle's slowing down." He goes, "If I was you, I wouldn't invest in any equipment." And I'm sitting here and I'm like turning down dealers literally every day. I can't be more serious. I turn down a dealer every day for 2.5 years, at least an average of one a day. And he's telling me, "Man, the market's crashing. Precision rifles are going away. You know, the RPR, you know, whatever." And I'm just like, "Yeah, you're right. I don't see it." But I think he was doing things wrong, you know, had that pessimistic outlook and worrying about everybody else.
Yeah, there's a story about that. You know, the small town guy sold cheeseburgers. He had a little cheeseburger stand, and you know, he made enough money. He sent his kid off to college. You know, and so the kid's up there at university taking all these classes, and comes back for spring break and tells his dad, he's like, "Man, the economy's going to crap. You know, if I were you, I'd probably scale down. It's going to get tough." So, you know, I mean, this is a man that's never learned anything other than selling cheeseburgers. So he's listening to this educated kid, right? And he's like, "Well, I'm probably going to do that." So he started, you know, he used to work every day. So now he's like, "Well, I'm going to start only working 5 days, you know, to conserve some whatever supplies or whatever." So, then he started shutting down early, and long story short, he went out of business, and he blamed it on the economy. But in reality, it was he brought it onto himself. You know what I mean?
Yep,
but
I do.
It's a lot of that. And, yeah, I mean, now that you mentioned this, gunsmiths, I remember I used to have, when I first started, I didn't know anything, right? So I started, I had different gunsmiths do stuff for me, and they would crown the barrels on a 3-jaw. And when I say, well, you know what I mean by crown. You stick it in there, clamp it, and face it. And I would be like, "Hey, you know, I've read that you got to indicate." "Nah," he goes, "flat is flat. You know, it doesn't matter where it's at. If you're just cutting it flat, it doesn't have to be indicated." I said, "Okay, kind of makes sense, right?" I mean, you have to understand, he's a machinist he's a gunsmith and I'm not, right? And I'm like, "Well, I had it wrong." Well, then he chambered my barrels, and I would ask, I said, and his motto was new brass, new barrel, new brass. And you probably heard that one before.
I have heard it.
And when I started going into, you know, when I was shooting F-class, you know, I'd get a lot of brass ready and neck turned and all that. Once I started getting into it real deep, and I had all these 300-400 pieces of pristine brass that I needed to shoot big matches. And all of a sudden, you know, the barrel's gone and I had to start all over. And, you know, 400 pieces of brass, that's 400 firings just to fire form the brass. You know, a quarter of the barrel life is gone just getting brass ready. And it just got really expensive. And I said, "Why can't I use this? I mean, if it's the same reamer, why can't I use the same brass?" And he goes, "Nope, it just doesn't work that way." I said, "Well, then just make it the same." He goes, "That's not how it works. These barrels can't be the same every time." I said, "Man, all right." You know, and it just made no sense to me. But this is a gunsmith telling me this, right? Well, finally, you know, tired of the wait times and the lead times and all that, I decided to get my own lathe, and I'm going to do it on my own. And I said, you know, if I'm going to learn, I could probably do this on my own. But I had met Speedy once, and he was shooting an F-class match. So I just called him up, and I knew he used to teach at Trinidad gunsmithing school. So I just called him up and I said, "Hey, I want to learn how to gunsmith. Can you teach me?" "Sure." He goes, "I can do a 1-on-1. I said, "Perfect." He told me when, and man, I loaded up all my barrels and actions and all and headed up there. And while he was explaining to me how to measure the actions and how to do all that stuff, I said, I just have one question. Why can't I use the same brass from one chamber to the next? And he goes, "Yeah, why can't you?" I said, "Well, no. I'm asking you." He goes, "Of course you can." I said, "I've always been told you can." He goes, "Well, you can. I mean, if you make the chamber the same." And he taught me how to chamber barrels. And my tolerance on my barrels is plus or minus 2/10 thousandths. That's how, and I just used my same brass on I mean, my die hasn't been adjusted in 8 years. My sizing die, and it's, but anyway, like you're talking about, not every gunsmith is a machinist.
Yeah. I'm not going to tell you that I did my first one right, but if a gunsmith, if they don't indicate the barrel in and you got run out or the reamer's not on center, it essentially acts as a boring bar and it's not going to cut to the size of the reamer, and you shoot in a wide chamber and then you go put it in a tighter one the next time, you're going to have issues, and then they're going to be blaming it on your die, like you said. So I get it.
So my plan now, once we have the CMM up and running, number one, I'm going to measure every die that goes out, but I might take it as far as to including the report with the die. That way, when you get your die, you look at it and you go, okay, this is the size of the die.
If nothing else, that customer's going to be like, man, I'm going to check this 3 times before I call this guy because he took care of his stuff.
Yeah. And like I said, if it doesn't work, it's fine. We can make it work. Yeah. It's just, this is what you're getting. I had a customer, we got a die back yesterday that he said it was 5,000 undersized, 5,000. I said, wow, we may have screwed up. I said, send it back. And we measure and it's like, no, it's too size. So I called him up and he says, well, it just felt way too tight. And I measured with my calipers. And I'm like, I said, you're measuring on a taper. It's incredibly hard, especially with calipers. So I said, it's okay. Just send me some brass. We'll measure the brass. We'll make you a die that works perfect. Don't worry. But yeah, it's another thing that we should probably, since we're talking about all this, is we should probably emphasize how not very good measuring tools calipers are. I know a lot of us are used to tape measures, and when we go to calipers, we go, oh, this is amazing, but it's not. All I can tell you is that 4th number on the caliper, that 4th decimal place, just put tape over it or something. Just ignore it.
Yeah, that's right.
That 4th decimal place is just there for looks.
Yeah, we use calipers for very few things around here. Scaling out tools when you change them in the mill is the only one, probably.
Yeah, calipers are not very, and it's fine. I mean, for reloading, like you talk about the tolerances that are in reloading, and they're quite big. And I don't want to get into how big they are, but they're not aerospace like you were talking about. Oh, yeah. But calipers, we get a lot of people that say, well, I measured this. And, they'll send me 4 decimal places. And if it ends in a 5, I have a pretty good idea how it was measured, because every decimal place ends in a 5. And I go, all right, just ignore the 4th number.
Yep. Yes, sir.
So what's the impact actions? Where's this going? Like where I know you mentioned that you moved and, you talk about, already needing an addition. What's the trajectory here? Where 10 years from now, what are you looking to have here?
I think about that all the time. And when we started out, Wade Sudaville was one of our partners. He always had goals and he was goal oriented. Let's write it down on paper so we have something to look at. It's crazy how much they've evolved, but the only way I don't feel the need to take over the world. I don't feel the need to say, hey, I want to go make 1,000 actions a month. I don't have that desire. All I know is until I get better help, and that's why it's important to me to try to get Quinn on, is I want to grow well. I don't want to grow faster than I can grow well. And I don't want to send stuff out the door that I'm ever going to hear from again. We have a really, skeleton crew, and I'm oftentimes hard to get a hold of, but for technical support, Wade checks all the emails, but my goal is to not hear of a problem. Right. So with social media, the way it is today, it can either really help you or really hurt you. And if I start sending stupid stuff out the door now, if somebody having problems with the, extracting because the alpha brass is a little thicker on the back, that was a little bit of a little thorn in my rear for a while, because now I needed to take the ID chamfer on the bolt nose a little bigger, because it worked with everything I was testing. And then, some of the 300 WSM brass has a bigger chamfer on the rim than others. And, what I'm testing didn't. And, but until I can grow well, I hate to answer that question, but, if I get Quinn in here and can focus on other things. We'll keep growing. I've got the sales there, and the need is there with customers that I already have. But it's really important that I grow well. But I'm going to keep going. My 9-year-old, and nothing against my 6-year-old, but my 9-year-old's already expressed interest in being here. He comes work in the shop. I'm training him. My 9-year-old, I hope he works for me, because if he doesn't, and this is going to sound bad, but my 9-year-old right now is a better hand than most 30-year-olds that come through my door. I tell him what to do. And I don't remember what podcast. I quit while I'm working in the shop. I'm focusing on my job, and I don't listen and get distracted. But, I heard somewhere, when you were young and your dad was raising you, he didn't want to hear why you couldn't get anything done. He wanted to tell you what to get done. He wanted to get done. And I always had that thought that I wanted to do that, but I didn't know how to put it into words. And that's how I'm raising my kids. I don't want to know why you can't do it. Like if I tell you to, for instance, go get the kerosene heater and move it in mom's shop today because she's going to work out or whatever. I just want the kerosene heater done. I don't want to hear that it's empty on fuel. I don't want to hear, things that 30-year-old men will tell you. Hey, well, it's out of fuel. I just want the heater in there. And I want my kid to, grow up, and if he wants to work here, work with me, whatever. So, it's really hard to say where I want to be, but I'm just going to keep going with the demand. I don't want to outgrow my britches. And in 2 different ways, I don't want to do that. But, just make good parts and get them out the door. I have a problem with scaling and putting too much on myself. And this last year with my dad, threw on top of it, but I was busy getting the machines going because I do it myself. So far that I couldn't get out and shoot. And that's really why I started doing this, is traveling and shooting with people. So, it's going to be important to me, getting somebody, an asset in here to help me be who I am and then grow when it's organic, let's call it. So, I don't know, but I see us in 10 years, I see us being, bigger than we are now, but I don't suspect I'll be, ginormous.
Well, controlled growth is tough. And that's what I'm also focusing on, because I had, those that don't know, I had Texas barn dominiums, and that thing grew like crazy. Like it grew to the point that I've had to step back and I go, okay, I got to go. I mean, that thing was already massive. We're building 15, 20 houses a year. And I said, I gotta grow to the point that I got to do 40, or I don't do this. And I had to make that decision. And I thought, you know what? It's already extremely stressful. I don't know that I want to do twice as much as what I'm doing now. And that's when I said, you know what? If I'm not going to put my heart into it, and if I'm just going to grow simply just because of growth, I'm not going to do it. And I shut it down. I mean, literally we were at the peak, and I said, this is great. This is a great point to jump off and, say goodbye and, and do what I really want to do, something that really drives me. And that's why here I'm really focusing on controlled growth. The people that are working for me, we go on fishing trips, we go hunting together, we go shooting together. It's like having a family, you know what I mean? So now, we have time to have fun. We go have fun. I go in the shop and it's a good time. When I go in the shop, we're all laughing and having a good time. It's not stressful. I mean, it is stressful because we're busy, but it's not, nobody's pissed. Everybody's happy to be here.
I know that. We do the same thing. I mean, you spend more time with the guys you work with than you do your family. I mean, really, you do. So you might as well enjoy it. And we've been really lucky. If we have a bad egg, they kind of sort themselves out. I don't have to say anything. It just happens. And we've got a really good shop full of guys. That's pretty underrated, but I wouldn't be where I am today if we didn't have good guys in the shop, knew how to show up to work and, get their job done. No doubt about it. We mess up, but at the end of the day, they all care, and that's all you can ask for. But same thing, controlled growth.
Exactly. So shooting, I mean, you're no slouch either. I mean, you're a pretty good shooter.
Yeah, I have been. I've kind of, it's kind of funny. I'm actually planning on trying to come back a little bit this year. I don't know that I'm going to shoot the finale, but when I started shooting, the first goal I had was to get in the top 10 for a bullet, right? A bullet, they're coveted. And I got 4 bullets, and on my 3rd bullet, I really wanted it. I think it was in 19 at K&M, and 20. I'm not going to say I accidentally, lucked into one, but I put myself in a position to happen to finale. But, my goal transition from being a great shooter to getting this under control and taking care of here, because, you know, shooting in the precision, I'm sure in any kind of shooting, it can consume your life, and it's expensive. So, you know, it's really hard to have the best processes in here. This is what I enjoy to do. It's not that I can't scale. I could probably find somebody to do all this, but I enjoy it. I enjoy being in my business. I enjoy having my hands on the product. I enjoy having that intimate knowledge of what's going on. But I changed my focus and, you know, going back to my kids, now my focus is on training them up. You know, we're shooting with them. We're shooting 223s. We shot shotguns the other day, but, you know, I have shot, and in the back of my head, I'm wondering, can I get back in it and be competitive again? Because, you know, there was a time where I went and I was disappointed if I wasn't in the top 5. You know, I won the NRL in 19, which isn't as big as a PRS, but I still try to claim it because, you know, Austin, Clay, Pinch, they were all there. So it was a goal of mine, and I haven't really had that goal in a few years, but I'm wondering this year, how well can I get back? So I'm going to try to push it a little bit this year. And now that I've got the shop running, you know, put a little bit of time in it and see what happens. I still enjoy it.
You know, you said you chambered a 6XC, and, you know, seems like 6mm is king nowadays. What are you shooting?
Man, I rotate around. So, to answer your question right now, I'm going to have a 6BR and a 25 GT this year. I'm a Hornady guy. Have been since 17. In the 25 cal scene, you know, some fellow Oklahomans, I don't know if anybody knows this, but Blackjack Bullets, in my opinion, was the main pusher of the 25 cal, helping it get going. They stock barrels. I don't remember how many, you know. That's kind of a sore subject for a lot of people because the main owner, not Logan, by the way, kind of did some people wrong, but they kept barrels, and, you know, it's hard to sell 25 cal bullets if you have to wait 12 months on a barrel. So they were smart enough to buy barrels to sell bullets. But anyway, Hornady, I don't know how many people, I'm not going to say I'm getting in trouble, but Austin Orgain got some of the prototype 25 cal bullets, and, you know, it could have been just a magical barrel. Could have been whatever, but he's really impressed with that 25 cal bullet and seeing a little bit more, not really adding much recoil. It's actually slower, but, you know, in our game, and I say our game, in the PRS stuff, seeing what downrange is king, and, you know, seeing impacts on plates, you know, trace through the air, whatever, seeing what you're doing is king, and Austin thinks that 25 cal, you know, the risk is worth the reward of seeing. So I'm going to tinker with that a little bit this year. Probably a little longer than you were wanting there, but I gave it.
No, it's a perfect answer because there's always something in the horizon. You see, you guys PRS seems like they haven't really settled on the magical or the perfect balance is probably the best word. Because like in F class, we pretty much have. It's a 7mm, 180 grain bullet, going about 2850 to 2950, somewhere in there. Some of those guys are experimenting with a 300 WSM, with a 215s, but seems like everybody that has a 300, they also have the 7mm, right? But if you're gonna go shoot F class, pretty much you know what to build, you know. And PRS is still, you know, you guys started kind of obviously with the 308s, and then the 6.5s, and now the 6s. And now you guys going, well, maybe it went too far. Maybe there's something in between, you know, and that's it's a transition that every sport makes, or just to find just the perfect balance. And I don't know that you guys will ever find it, simply because of your matches are so dynamic compared to F class. We have the same target, same distance, and all we got to deal with is the wind. And, you know, we're looking for cartridges that's very stable. You guys have, you know, if you shoot a matching in Oklahoma and if you shoot one in Tennessee or Raton, they're all different, right? Even though it's the same sport.
And it sounds dumb, and maybe the better shooters are better at this than me, but, you know, like you said, you could have a match in Florida that's the max range is 900 yards, and you go to Hornady PRC where you're shooting 1,700 yards and you have, you know, 18 shots outside of 900 yards. That's important. You know, the first Hornady PRC I went to, Dan Bertacchini won with a 284, some 7mm. Clay got second with a BRA, 6 BRA, which are just two totally opposite ends of the spectrum. Then the next year they flip-flopped, you know, but did the wind blow? You know, there's so many factors in that, but, you know, why do I have a BR? Because it's so easy. And if I'm going to go shoot, a Mississippi match or something where it's predominantly 900 and in, there's no wind, I'm going to be able to see more with that BR from, let's say, 300 to 500 than I would a heavier caliber bullet where I'm still riding out that recoil and trying to get my sight picture, clear again. So, where the heavier stuff, if I'm going to have a dominant 600 and out match, riding that initial recoil pulse out and getting back on target and focusing, and, you see more 600 plus with a heavier bullet. So to me, it's match dependent. Morgan King shows up with a 6.5 Creedmoor everywhere and he does it well. So it's kind of hard to, put too much weight behind that, but that's why I'm doing it. My eyes are fading a little bit.
How long before you, PRS turns into golf, where depending on the range that you go to, you pull a different rifle?
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of rule changes lately, but right now the rule is you're supposed to start. Well, it was last year. You're supposed to finish the match with the rifle you started with, but who knows where it'll go. So there's a lot to be said with a man with one gun,
Yeah, but the man with one gun only has one action, Tate. Come on.
I need to change that to one caliber.
There you go.
When I shot the same caliber for years, you remember your dope, and at 400 it's relatively the same, but you get out of distance, I don't remember my dope anymore because I'm not in it all the time. It's not been my focus in life to do so. But you need to be semi familiar with what you're shooting when you go to a match nowadays. Yeah,
for sure. Man, good stuff, man. I appreciate you, taking some time to do this. I know you're super busy, and as always, I appreciate you.
You bet, man. Sorry it took so long, but I appreciate you just as much as you appreciate me. Just to finish it off, like that's how I first saw you with Texas Barn Dominiums. When I started looking at building a house, I wanted something I could do myself, and a barn dominium just feels like something you can do more yourself. And then I remember asking you that I gotta add it on. I asked you how much a square foot can I build a house? You're like, what are you going to do? Well, that's such an open-ended question because you spend more money after you're shelled up than you do anything before. Getting shelled up is very predictable, but how you finish the inside of that house actually costs more if you finish it out like a traditional house. But anyway, I appreciate the help from you just like you do for me.
My standard answer to that used to be, well, how long is a piece of rope?
Yeah.
It's no different than a rifle, right? Hey, so how much does it cost to build a rifle? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But good stuff, man. All right. Thank you. And keep hammering down, man.
All right, buddy. Thanks.